My story begins one afternoon during the winter in Chicago. The sky was gloomy, just like the color of my marriage. My name is John McClain. I'm 45 years old and a detective with the Chicago Police Department. I've been doing this job for 20 years, rising from patrol officer to my current position. I've seen the bright and dark sides of this city, and I'm used to navigating through gunfire and lies. The police job is like a double-edged sword. It gives you power and makes you the embodiment of justice, but it also makes you walk on the edge of danger at all times, and even bring danger home. My wife Sarah, 38 years old, is an emergency room nurse. We have been married for 15 years. From the outside, it seems that we are a perfect match. I am a respected police officer, and she is a white-clad angel who saves lives and relieves suffering. What a beautiful picture. But life is not a fairy tale, and marriage is even more of a cruel drama of reality. Sarah is very beautiful, with blonde hair and blue eyes, a hot body, and a smile that is as bright as the sun. I was attracted to her smile at first, thinking that she would be the sunshine in my life, lighting up all my darkness. But now, her smile has become the sharpest knife in my heart, and every time I think of it, it makes me feel like I want to die. When did our marriage start to go wrong? Maybe it was 5 years? Maybe it was 10? I can't remember anymore. The police work was busy and stressful, and I often worked overtime, even all night. Sarah was the same, exhausted by the work in the emergency room. We were both too tired to find the time and energy to nurture our relationship. Home was just a place to sleep for us, not a warm harbor. We have less and less to say to each other, and our communication has become less frequent. Even our sex life has become routine and devoid of passion. I know Sarah is unhappy, and I am too, but we have both chosen to remain silent and to avoid the issue, thinking that time will heal everything. But what we didn't realize was that time would only make the rift grow wider and wider until it eventually became an unbridgeable abyss. The turning point in the story came in an ordinary case. Our police station has been tracking a drug smuggling gang recently, led by a guy named Danny DeMarcus. Danny is a crafty person with excellent counter-surveillance capabilities. We have been tracking him for months, but have never been able to find his hiding place, let alone catch him. That afternoon, I was in my office organizing case files when my partner Mike walked in, holding a document in his hand and a hint of excitement on his face. Mike has been my partner for a long time, and we have worked together for more than 10 years, with a deep understanding of each other. He is a very reliable person and the only friend I can trust in the police station. "John, we have a new lead." Mike handed me the file and whispered, "Our informant has sent news that Danny has been seeing a woman recently, and that woman may be his breakthrough." I took the file and quickly skimmed through it. There were several photos on the file, and the man in the photos was Danny DeMarcus, while the woman next to him made me freeze instantly, as if I had been struck by lightning, and all the blood in my body had coagulated. The woman in the photo was none other than my wife, Sarah. The photo was taken in front of a luxury hotel. Sarah and Danny were holding hands, laughing and talking, acting intimately like a couple in love. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, and the pain made me gasp for breath. Anger, shock, humiliation, disbelief, all kinds of emotions surged up like a tidal wave, almost drowning me. "John, what's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Mike noticed my unusual appearance and asked with concern. I took a deep breath to try to calm myself down, pointed at the woman in the photo, and asked hoarsely, "Mike, are you sure this woman is Sarah?" Mike leaned closer to the photo and took a closer look, then looked at me again with a surprised expression on his face. "John, this really is Sarah. How could this be?" "I don't know, Mike, I really don't," I muttered, my mind in a complete mess. I couldn't believe that my beloved wife was having an affair with the suspect we were tracking. It was like a nightmare, and I couldn't accept it. "John, calm down. We need to investigate this properly." Mike patted my shoulder in an attempt to comfort me. "Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Maybe Sarah just knows Danny. Things aren't as bad as we think." "Misunderstanding? Just knows?" Mike's words were feeble and utterly unconvincing. The scene in the photo was more than enough to explain everything. There was definitely more than just a casual acquaintance between Sarah and Danny. They were holding hands, acting intimately, and their eyes were full of love, which was not the behavior of ordinary friends. Mike, this is no misunderstanding. She's cheated on me with Danny DeMarco, my wife's cheating suspect. I said bitterly, my voice full of despair and anger. Mike was silent, not knowing what to say. As my partner and friend, he knew very well the feelings between Sarah and me, and also knew what this meant to me. Betrayal was an intolerable disgrace for a man, especially a policeman. John, what do you want to do? Do you want to report this to the station? Mike asked hesitantly. Report it to the station? And let everyone know that my wife cheated on me with a suspect, and make me the laughingstock of the entire police station. I yelled, completely out of control. I couldn't accept such a result. I couldn't let others make fun of me. I had to solve this matter myself, in my own way. Mike, don't tell anyone about this for now, including the chief. I want to investigate this myself and see for myself what the hell Sarah is up to, I said with clenched teeth, my eyes full of anger and the flames of revenge. John, calm down, don't be impulsive. This is a very complicated matter. You need to think long and hard about it, Mike said worriedly, knowing my character and knowing that once I get impulsive, I can do anything. Don't worry, Mike, I won't be impulsive. I will handle this matter calmly and make Sarah and Danny pay. I said coldly, my tone full of murderous intent. Over the next few days, I began a secret investigation into Sarah and Danny. I asked Mike to retrieve Sarah's call records and travel records for me, and I also had someone follow Sarah to try to get more evidence against them. The results of the investigation only made me feel more heartbroken and angry. Sarah and Danny had been dating for a long time. They often stayed in hotel rooms and went to all kinds of fancy places together. Sarah even used my credit card to buy Danny a lot of luxury goods. My wife, for the sake of a drug dealer, betrayed our marriage and betrayed my trust and love for her. Anger and humiliation burned like two fires in my heart, almost consuming me. I couldn't bear such a betrayal. I couldn't stand Sarah and Danny getting away with it. I wanted revenge. I wanted them to pay. Once the idea of revenge took hold, it grew like a weed, taking over my mind and body. I began to formulate my revenge plan. I wanted to bring Sarah and Danny's reputation and families to ruin. I wanted them to pay the most painful price for their betrayal. The opportunity soon came. We learned through an informant that Danny would be conducting a drug deal at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. This was the perfect opportunity. If we could raid the warehouse, we would catch Danny and his gang red-handed. I volunteered to lead the raid. The chief of police approved my request in light of my many years of meritorious service and experience. I knew that my plan for revenge was about to begin. The raid was scheduled for the night 3 days later. Those 3 days felt like 3 years to me. Every second was like an eternity of torture. On the surface, I pretended to be carefree, going to work and coming home as usual, talking to Sarah, even eating and sleeping with her. But inside, I was filled with hatred and anger. I wanted to catch Sarah and Danny immediately and torture them mercilessly so that they would rather die than live. Sarah didn't seem to notice anything unusual about me. She continued to smile at me as usual, flirt with me, and even initiated intimacy with me. Looking at her smiling face and listening to her sweet words made me feel sick. This woman is so hypocritical and shameless. She is simply a natural-born actress who has me playing right into her hands. On the night of the raid, I arrived at the police station early and worked out a detailed plan of action with Mike and the rest of the team. We divided into 3 groups. One group would surround the warehouse to prevent Danny and his gang from escaping. One group would storm the front door of the warehouse, and the other group would enter through the back door to form a pincer movement. Everything was ready, and we drove to the abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was dark and cold, and the winter night in Chicago was so cold that it made your bones ache. My heart was colder and colder than the winter night. After arriving near the warehouse, we hid ourselves and waited for the operation to begin. I looked at my watch, the minutes ticking by, my heartbeat getting faster and faster, my adrenaline rising. I knew that my fate, Sarah's fate, Danny's fate, would all be completely rewritten on this night. Operation begins. I ordered into the walkie-talkie and took the lead, rushing towards the warehouse. The team followed closely behind, rushing towards their respective targets like tigers descending a mountain. We kicked the warehouse door open and the team rushed in, Mike and I in the lead. The warehouse was pitch black, with only a few dim bulbs flickering. The air was filled with a pungent chemical smell, the smell of drugs. "Police! Don't move!" we shouted as we charged into the depths of the warehouse. The people in the warehouse obviously didn't expect us to come so quickly, and they panicked and fled in all directions. We quickly took control of the situation and forced everyone to the ground. "Where is Danny DeMarcus?" I asked sternly, grabbing a subdued drug dealer. In the innermost room," the drug dealer said shakily, his eyes full of fear. I signaled Mike to take charge of the prisoners and led a few team members towards the innermost room of the warehouse. My heart was pounding faster and faster, and my breathing became rapid. I knew that the truth was right in front of me. I kicked open the door to the room, and everything in the room completely stunned me, as if I had been struck by lightning, and my mind went blank. In the room, on a rickety iron bed, a man and a woman were sound asleep. The man was Danny DeMarco, and the woman was Sarah. Sarah was lying naked in Danny's arms, the two of them snuggled together like a loving couple, fast asleep. Seeing this scene, I felt my blood freeze. Anger, humiliation, despair, all kinds of emotions erupted like a volcano, almost completely consuming me. "Sarah!" I roared, my voice like the roar of a beast, full of anger and pain. My roar woke the two people in the bed. Sarah and Danny opened their eyes suddenly and saw me standing in the doorway, and the heavily armed police behind me. Their faces showed expressions of horror and disbelief. "John? Why are you here?" Sarah screamed, hastily covering herself with the quilt, her eyes full of panic and fear. "Police! Don't move!" Mike and his team rushed into the room and took Danny DeMarcus under control. I ignored Danny and fixed my eyes on Sarah, watching her panicked expression and her naked body. My heart ached as if it was going to split in two. I couldn't believe that my beloved wife would betray me like this and hurt me so much, and in such a humiliating way. "Sarah, why? Why did you do this to me?" I asked in agony, my voice choking and my eyes filling with tears. Sarah looked at me, her eyes flickering, afraid to make eye contact. She was silent for a moment before stammering, "John, I didn't mean to, I just what? Just loneliness? Just emptiness? Or just a search for excitement?" I yelled, interrupting Sarah. My voice grew louder and louder, and I became more and more agitated, almost losing my mind. "No, John, let me explain, it's not what you think." Sarah tried to explain, but her voice grew smaller and smaller, and weaker, because she knew for herself that there was nothing to explain, and all explanations were just pale excuses. "Enough, Sarah, I don't want to hear any more explanations from you." I saw it with my own eyes. "What's there to explain?" I said coldly, my tone full of disappointment and disgust. My love for Sarah completely disappeared at this moment, and all that was left was hatred, endless hatred. "Mike, take them both away." Danny DeMarcus is suspected of drug trafficking, and Sarah McLean is suspected of obstructing justice and assisting criminals. "Take them all back to the police station for questioning." I ordered coldly, my voice as cold as the ice in the dead of winter. "John, you can't do this to me. I'm your wife. How can you arrest me?" Sarah screamed, her voice full of despair and fear. "Wife? Do you even remember that you are my wife? When you betrayed me, did you ever think about me as your husband?" I laughed in anger, my voice full of mockery and sadness. Sarah was stunned by my words. She opened her mouth, trying to say something, but in the end she said nothing, just silently shed tears as the police took her away. Watching Sarah being taken away by the police, my heart did not feel the slightest sense of joy, but rather more pain and emptiness. I had originally thought that catching Sarah and Danny would set me free and allow me to succeed in my revenge. But now I have realized that revenge does not bring happiness, but only more pain and emptiness. I dragged my heavy footsteps out of the warehouse. The night outside was even darker, and the cold wind was even more piercing. I looked up at the sky. There were no stars or moon, just endless darkness, just like my future, without a glimmer of light. Back at the police station, I put Danny DeMarcus and Sarah in separate cells and began the interrogation. Danny was very cunning. He refused to admit his crime, insisting that he was innocent, and instead accused us of abusing our power and framing him. Sarah, on the other hand, completely broke down. She kept crying, apologizing to me over and over again, begging me to forgive her. She said she was just confused, that she still loved me, and begged me to let her off on account of our past relationship. Looking at Sarah's tear-stained face, my heart wavered once again. After all, she was a woman I had deeply loved, and we had lived together for 15 years, with so many fond memories. Did I really want to send her to prison myself? Was our 15 years of affection really coming to an end? My heart was struggling painfully within me. Reason told me that Sarah had betrayed me and hurt me, and she deserved to be punished without mercy. But my emotions told me that Sarah was my wife and the woman I had loved deeply. I couldn't just give up on her. I should give her a chance to turn over a new leaf. Just as I was hesitating, Mike walked in, holding a document in his hand. His face was grave as he said, "John, we've found some new information about Danny DeMarco." "What is it?" I asked with a frown, feeling a vague sense of unease in my heart. Danny DeMarco is not just an ordinary drug dealer, he is also a member of an international criminal group that has recently been planning a major drug smuggling case targeting Chicago, Mike said seriously, his tone full of concern. An international criminal group? A major drug smuggling case? I was taken aback. I didn't expect Danny DeMarcus's background to be so complicated. Yes, we found some clues on Danny's phone that showed he was in contact with a mysterious foreign organization. They plan to smuggle a shipment of drugs worth millions of dollars into Chicago in the near future, and then distribute them across the United States, Mike continued. If they succeed, the consequences will be unimaginable. Damn, this Danny DeMarco has hidden himself so well. I cursed angrily, feeling a sense of dread. If we hadn't caught Danny by accident, we might never have found out his true identity, let alone stopped his criminal plans. John, what do we do now? Should we report to our superiors immediately and ask for support? Mike asked. No, there's no time to waste. If we report to the higher-ups and wait for them to mobilize, I'm afraid Danny's gang will have already moved. We must find a way to stop their plan ourselves, I said decisively. I knew that time was of the essence now, and we had to race against the clock to catch Danny's gang before they could act. But we don't have enough manpower, and we don't know anything about Danny's gang, so how can we stop their plan? Mike said worriedly. No, we don't know nothing. We still have Sarah, I said suddenly, a light flashing in my eyes. Sarah? You mean, get her to cooperate with our investigation? Mike asked doubtfully, obviously not understanding what I meant. Yes, Sarah is the person Danny trusts the most. She must know Danny's plans. As long as we can convince her to cooperate with us, we can keep tabs on Danny's gang and thus stop their criminal plans, I said with certainty. This was our only hope at the moment. But will Sarah cooperate with us? She hates us right now, Mike said worriedly. He didn't think Sarah would cooperate with us. Yes, she will, to atone for her sins, to reduce her guilt, she will cooperate with us, I said firmly. I still had a glimmer of hope for Sarah. I believed that she would not completely lose her conscience and that she would make the right choice. I immediately got up and walked towards the interrogation room. I wanted to persuade Sarah personally to cooperate with our investigation and stop Danny DeMarco's criminal plan. I knew that this might be my last chance, and Sarah's last chance to redeem herself. I walked into the interrogation room. Sarah was still sitting there, head down, silently crying. When she saw me come in, she looked up, her eyes full of fear and unease. "Sarah, let's talk," I said as I walked up to Sarah and tried to calm my voice. I knew that this was not the time to lose my temper. I needed to remain calm and rational in order to persuade Sarah. Sarah looked up at me with a complex expression in her eyes, a mixture of fear, expectation, and a trace of hope. "John, what do you want to talk about? Are you still determined to punish me?" Sarah said, choking back tears, and her voice was hoarse with despair. "Sarah, I didn't come here today to hold you responsible, but to give you a chance to atone for your sins," I said seriously, with a sincere tone and a firm gaze. "A chance to atone for my sins? What do you mean?" Sarah asked doubtfully, obviously unable to understand what I meant. "Danny DeMarco is not just an ordinary drug dealer, he is also a member of an international criminal group that is planning a major drug smuggling case targeting Chicago. If they succeed, the consequences will be unimaginable," I said seriously, telling Sarah Danny's true identity. Sarah's face instantly turned pale upon hearing my words, her eyes full of shock and fear. She obviously did not expect that the man she was dating was such a dangerous character. "You mean Danny is an international criminal?" Sarah said, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Yes, Sarah, Danny DeMarco is an international criminal. He used you and deceived you just to use you as a cover for his criminal activities. You have been deceived, Sarah, completely deceived," I said sadly, hoping to awaken Sarah's conscience. Sarah fell silent, her head bowed, lost in thought. I knew she was making a difficult choice, between me and Danny, between justice and evil. "Sarah, I know you are suffering and confused right now, but you must wake up and make the right choice. You are a nurse, your duty is to save lives, not to help criminals. You cannot ruin your life and our 15 years of relationship for the sake of a criminal," I continued to persuade her, hoping to move Sarah's heart with my sincere tone. "John, what should I do?" "I really don't know what to do." Sarah finally looked up at me, her eyes full of helplessness and confusion. "Sarah, you need to cooperate with our investigation. You need to tell us about Danny's plans. We need your help to stop his criminal plans and bring him to justice." I took Sarah's hand and shook it firmly, looking her in the eye with a determined expression to give her strength and courage. Sarah looked at me and saw the trust and expectation in my eyes. Her eyes gradually became determined, and she seemed to have finally made up her mind. "Okay, John, I promise you, I will cooperate with your investigation. I will tell you everything I know, as long as it can make up for my mistakes, as long as it can help you catch Danny. I am willing to do anything," Sarah said firmly, her tone full of remorse and determination. Hearing Sarah's words, I finally let out a sigh of relief. I knew that my revenge plan could perhaps be put on hold for the time being. The most important thing now was to stop Danny DeMarco's criminal plan and protect the safety of Chicago. Over the next few hours, Sarah told us in detail everything she knew about Danny DeMarco, including his criminal plans, his gang members, and their hiding places. Sarah's cooperation provided crucial clues for our investigation and gave us a deeper understanding of Danny's gang. Based on the information provided by Sarah, we quickly formulated a new plan of action and decided to conduct another raid on Danny's gang when they were conducting a drug deal and arrest them all. This raid was even more dangerous and more important than the last one. Because we were not just dealing with an ordinary drug dealer, but an international criminal group that was even more powerful and ruthless. But I didn't care about that anymore. For justice, for revenge, for Sarah, and for myself, I had to do my best and do whatever it took to completely eliminate Danny DeMarco and his gang. The raid took place the following night. We had learned from our mistakes and were better prepared. We had mobilized more police officers and drawn up a more thorough plan. Once the operation began, everything went according to plan. We successfully surrounded Danny's gang's hideout and launched a fierce attack. Although Danny's gang put up a stubborn resistance, they were quickly routed under our heavy fire and surrendered. Danny DeMarcus was also captured during the raid. We shot him dead on the spot, ending his criminal life. The raid was a complete success. Not only did we capture Danny DeMarcus and his gang members, we also seized a large quantity of drugs and firearms and ammunition, successfully preventing this major drug smuggling case. After the operation, I returned to the police station exhausted. I sat in my office and smoked in silence. My emotions were mixed. I felt a sense of triumph and satisfaction, but also a sense of emptiness and confusion. Danny DeMarcus was dead, and his gang had been wiped out. My revenge plan had been half a success. But what about Sarah? Where would my marriage to Sarah go from here? Sarah was sentenced to probation after cooperating with the police investigation and redeeming herself. After she was released, I went to the prison gate to pick her up. Seeing Sarah again, I still had mixed feelings. She had lost a lot of weight, her face was pale, her eyes were dull, and she looked haggard. When she saw me, she lowered her head and didn't dare to make eye contact. "Sarah, let's go home," I said softly, walking up to her. My tone was calm, and I couldn't detect any emotions in it. Sarah looked up at me, then at the police officers around us, and finally nodded. She followed me silently to my car. The car slowly started and drove towards home. There was silence in the car, and the atmosphere was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. Neither Sarah nor I said a word, just silently watching the scenery outside the window as it passed by. When we got home, we remained silent, each minding our own business, as if we were strangers to each other. I knew that there was no going back between Sarah and me. The rift between us was too deep to heal. At night, we lay in the same bed, but with our backs to each other, an unbridgeable chasm between us. I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Images of Sarah and Danny making love in bed kept flashing through my mind, cutting my heart like a knife. "John, let's get a divorce," Sarah said suddenly in the darkness, her voice calm but full of determination. I was silent for a moment, and finally nodded and said softly, "Okay, let's get a divorce." I knew that this was the best ending for us, and perhaps the only ending. There was no longer any love between Sarah and me. All that was left was hatred, hurt, and endless pain. Divorce was a relief for both of us. The next day, we went to go through the divorce formalities, and our 15-year marriage came to an end. As we walked out of the civil affairs office, Sarah and I looked at each other with complicated expressions in our eyes. Neither of us said a word, but silently turned in opposite directions and parted ways, never to see each other again. After the divorce, I quit my job as a police officer, left Chicago, and moved to a small town to live a reclusive life. I wanted to escape the hustle and bustle of the city, forget the past, and start my life over. But I know that the past can never be forgotten. Sarah's betrayal and Danny's death will forever be etched in my memory and become scars that will never heal. My life has been completely changed by Sarah's infidelity. I have lost my wife, my marriage, and my faith in love. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I must be strong and live on for myself and for those who have loved and trusted me. Life goes on, the sun still rises, and stories always come to an end. And my story is probably just a microcosm of countless marital tragedies. Marriage is like a gamble. You never know if you'll end up winning or losing. And I obviously lost big time. If you like my story and want to hear more in-depth analyses of human nature and emotions, please subscribe to my channel and we'll meet again next time.